Welcome to a new episode of Intellectual Intercourse. I'm Adam.
And I'm Tranna.
Today we have a special topic. So Tranna and I have been exploring what's next for this podcast, and we really feel that we're at a pivotal moment to unpack something that we'd like to share with you, the viewers, but also
Listeners. Your
I-
senses are altered.
So we're just going to dive right in. Tranna, are you a psychonaut?
Well, before I answer that, what is your definition of a psychonaut?
Um, a psychonaut for me is, in the basic term, essentially a navigator of the mind.
Oh my God. Okay, that's not a basic term. Can you, is there, that's so abstract.
Okay, I'll break it down a little
Yeah.
bit more, but essentially, I would say that it's a person who explores altered states of consciousness, typically with substances like psilocybin or LSD or like deep meditation or breath work. But I kind of view it as somebody that basically likes to take mushrooms.
Then yes. Although I've only done it once so far with
Uh-huh.
you, which obviously we're going to talk about today. I think we both kind of we've alluded to it in previous episodes, and I think we both feel compelled to sort of talk about the experience that we had so that we can also prepare for the next trip.
Exactly. So, do you remember when you first heard about mushrooms, or like
Hmm.
how it came about in your life in general? Probably even before me.
Right,
Yeah.
that's a really good question. I don't really have a strong memory. I know that I didn't hear it for the first time from you.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like it's, something that I've heard people talk about for a long time. I think that when I was a kid or like a teen, even young adult, I feel like the times where it might have come up, it felt like something that was very druggy. Like,
Hmm.
I associated it, I think, with kind of people that are, like, really hippie-ish and maybe smell bad and maybe have lost touch with reality. Like, I think, to be perfectly honest, I think my association or connotation with it was probably pretty negative.
Yeah.
But we're talking, like, over 15 years ago, you know?
Same for me. I remember really clearly, I have this like visual of me being in like middle school, I believe, like very young. And the police did a day at the school, and they came in with something that was like a giant briefcase that opened up. And
Okay.
when it opened up, it was like visual imitations of drugs.
Okay.
So it was kind of like to teach us, like, if you see these substances, they're illegal, they're bad for you, do not take them, and like trying to give us say no to drugs sort of
Right.
education. And I remember them pulling together, I think they said psilocybin and LSD in like the same category. And I remember being like so curious, like, what is LSD? And one of the people who are the police officers were like, LSD is not addictive. And then I was like, well, why can't I try it?
I mean, I think that I still have a naivety around drugs.
Mhm.
Like, I don't even know what LSD looks like, to
Me
be
either.
honest.
I don't
Like, I know
remember.
that maybe makes me sound like such a square, but I probably wouldn't know her if I saw her. And I do remember also having a pretty anti-drug sort of upbringing.
Uh-huh.
Um, Not as much from school. I think a lot of those commercials
Mhm.
that were aired during, like, kids programming, like, I vividly remember the commercial of, like, "This is your brain, and it's an egg," and then it's like, "This is your brain on drugs," and they, like, crack the egg and put it in a frying pan, and your egg brain just fries away, and I can't lie, like, I did get the message, you
Mhm.
know? I also vividly remember this one episode of Oprah because I used to watch Oprah all the time
Okay.
when I was a kid and, like, throughout my teen years, and I do remember there was a whole episode about ecstasy,
Okay.
and just these sort of horror stories of, like, teens who had taken it once and died.
Mhm.
Like, that's what I just remember. I just remember the stories basically all being like they tried it once and it was supposed to be fun, but they died.
Mhm.
And so I think that I carried a lot of that fear for a long time, and it never seemed worth it to me to take that chance.
Mhm.
Because I think, as unrealistic as it might have been, I did have this idea that all it takes is one time and you could die.
I had the same thing. I mean, my whole upbringing, like as an adolescent and even into my adult, drugs were something that I was just not attracted to. I had extreme amount of fear. The same thing that you do it once and then basically it could like completely mess up your mind or
Yeah,
your life, and that then like, everything would be over and it would never be able to come back from it. Like it just seemed too high risk
exactly.
completely.
And to
Yeah.
be honest, I still carry a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Like, we did mushrooms, but that's also an organic,
Mhm.
um, plant? I don't know what it is.
Substance.
Substance, whereas I think the things that are more chemical
Mhm.
do still scare me. The
Sure.
things that are synthetic and sort of made in a lab, and now everything is laced
Sure.
with fentanyl. The fentanyl narrative, like, is very scary to me as
Yeah.
well, and, like, does not seem, like, worth the risk. Like,
Mhm.
I think that I'm still very risk averse.
Uh-huh.
I don't know about you, but for me, there was also this dimension growing up where, like, my father, who was not a part of my life growing up and is not a part of my life to this day, but I didn't know that he had a history with, like, drug and alcohol addiction, and it runs on his side of the family. And obviously, there is a genetic component to addiction.
Mhm.
And so I think that I was always really scared of that.
Yeah.
Just knowing that I potentially have that gene, and that maybe if I try something once and really like it, that I'm just gonna spiral.
Yeah.
So that's another dimension of my fear.
And you're also a Pisces.
And I'm also a Pisces, and we're known to be drawn to drugs. And I think that for a long time was like one of the main aspects of Pisces that I like didn't embody at all or didn't connect to.
Uh-huh.
But then, I mean, we'll talk about it more, but when I had that experience with you, I was like, oh, like I get it now.
You were addicted and you were, like, aligned and you were like, "I'm ready for this."
Yeah, exactly.
For me, it took me years before I actually tried psilocybin for the first time. So I have been doing therapy for years and I stumbled across it and a lot of research in Canada. It's becoming much more, I think, like medically approved in Health Canada in certain instances
Hmm.
under drug trials and um, experiments. And it can be even prescribed to some people who have PTSD or depression in very controlled circumstances. And I sort of saw the articles and the movement of it and I was so interested in it. I was like, wow, I want to open my mind. I want knowledge. Like it all aligned with me, everything that I read. And I was just also really interested in the experience of other people talking about it and the weightlessness and like how it just sort of relaxes a lot of parts
Hmm.
of your mind. We can talk more about that. But it wasn't until Nine Perfect Strangers came on TV. And I was like, if Nicole Kidman can do this, I can do this. So it was like the part that kind of like pushed it over the edge for me. Like I
That
know
convinced you.
that convinced me just seeing how the people were interacting and the experiences that they were having and like the trauma breakthroughs. Like I know
Yeah.
it was all fictionalized and probably based in some truth of some
Yeah.
experiences, but seeing it and seeing people go through the experience on TV, it like just was like, okay, I really want to know what this is. And then I watched a couple documentaries on Netflix about psilocybin and other substances, and I was like, it like the narrative in my head changed to like not I want, it's like I
I
need
need.
to try
Yeah.
this. Also, just like a disclaimer to all the listeners, like we are not advocating for you to go out and like take
No.
drugs or do any of this.
We're
we're
just
just talking from personal experience,
exactly.
and
Do your research.
do your research, talk to professionals, make sure that you understand the context in which everything is being done. We're just having fun talking about our
Exactly.
personal experience here.
Exactly, and I think that those things are key in ensuring that you have a good experience. I think part of the reason that I was actually able to let go of my fears, because I think that you really built up my curiosity because as you just described that research that you did and how excited you were about it, and I remember you just sort of sharing information with me along the way, and I also felt really curious about
Mhm.
it. I'm kind of glad you kind of did it first and you were like the guinea pig. And also, when we did it, we were at your chalet and we were with your partner, who's a doctor, and another friend of ours who's also a doctor. And you had done it before. So I just felt like this is the safest it's ever going to be for me to try
Mhm.
this. You know,
Yeah.
like there are medical professionals on site. And that I think really helped me get through the fear
Yeah.
and just be like and I just remember having this feeling of just knowing this is the time.
It's interesting. I think for me also, it it takes a lot of time. Like, I've done different levels of mushrooms from microdosing to medium dose to a hero dose, and I've had significantly different experiences at the different dosages. And I would say that it took me a long time in between each of those experiences, from the micro to the medium to the hero, to be ready. And when I was ready, I knew it. Like, it was
Yeah.
really like, I don't know, there's, like, this feeling that when you take mushrooms that everything is connected, like, there's this beautiful experience that happens, but I think even off mushrooms, it knows when it's ready for you and when you're ready for it. Like, there's some kind
Oh,
of
I
weirdness there.
yeah, I do feel that for sure.
Mhm.
Before we talk more about, just the actual lived experience
Yeah.
of doing it, I'm just curious to know if you had any other drug-related experiences before the first time you did mushrooms.
Not really. I mean, I had tried marijuana. It was illegal at the time, but legal now. It's not something that I've ever been attracted
Right,
to. Like, so prior to doing mushrooms, I had not experimented with drugs, I would say intentionally,
right.
or had good experience with
Yeah.
marijuana at all. What about you?
Well, outside of mushrooms, the only other time was with you that one time where we tried, like, CBD oil,
Yes.
and it was not great.
No.
Like, we because I don't like smoking things. I've still have never really smoked a cigarette even, and last summer, I actually shot a short film, and my
Uh-huh.
character smokes.
Okay.
And they make, like, fake prop cigarettes, but, like, they still, like, have they still burn, like, it's just not tobacco, it's something else that's, like, not harmful or whatever. But I was so unconvincing,
Yeah.
just, like, even in the way that I was holding the cigarette and the way that I was, like, inhaling, it was clear that I was not
Mhm.
a smoker, like, I don't understand the mechanism of the inhaling and the holding the breath and then letting it out, like,
Uh-huh.
I don't know, I'm so not a smoker. I'm like baffled by the mechanism. Um, and so, but I still wanted to try something that would alter my
Mhm.
reality, but not in a major way. So that's why like I felt comfortable like trying the oil with you. And I remember us like doing a few drops and then like nothing really happening and then doing more drops and more drops and more drops. And then it hit.
Yeah.
But it hit when we like went to sleep. And like I remember waking up in the middle of the night just feeling so weird and having like very weird dreams.
Yeah.
And even physically the next morning, I felt like my body was like aching. Like it felt like I'd been like hit by a truck or something. Like it did
Yeah.
not feel good.
I remember, like, I think we were, doing the cannabis oil and reading the description of the effects, and it was,
Yeah.
like, so beautifully written. I was like, "I wanna have that experience," which was basically the experience I think that we had on mushrooms,
Yeah.
or the type of experience you have on mushrooms, but was kinda promised through the CBD
Yeah, it
oil,
didn't
whatever.
take us there.
I remember I was in bed and I just felt like I was, like, sinking.
Yeah,
Like, it was not like a uplifting experience at
at
all.
all, at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it, honestly. And again, I mean, I wouldn't say never, but I still don't feel called to any of the other drugs.
I don't
I'm still
either.
too scared, honestly. Like I'm just gonna admit it straight up. Like I think that I think the thing also that kept me part of my fear for a long time was the idea that I could take something that would alter my reality or consciousness or have
Mhm.
some sort of effect on me.
Yeah,
And the fear was that what if I don't like that effect
yeah,
and I'm stuck with it for hours? And the idea of being trapped within your body in an experience that you can't escape, like that is still kind of a terrifying idea to me.
yeah. I mean, I had that fear before taking mushrooms. I thought that taking it would completely alter my mind and that would not be reversible,
Yeah.
and I really don't have curiosity about other drugs.
So what was like what brought you to your first experience with mushrooms?
Well, it took me a long time to find mushrooms.
Mm.
Like, how do you get mushrooms? I had no idea. I had to ask around quite a bit. I found a psychologist that was growing them, and I was like, okay, it's somebody who grows them. I can go get them direct from the source of where they're being grown. And I was like, that feels like a good, safe pathway to have it. And then I had to do like a lot of research on how to do the dosing because it's like I've never measured drugs before. I'm not running a cocaine operation in my office. So like the idea I had to even go buy like the weight scale that can support grams because I didn't have that. So like there was a whole process. It wasn't like I did it overnight. It took me months to really get comfortable and be ready for it. And I did, I would say like 4 to 500 milligrams, and I um, didn't know if it was working or not. Like it's this really weird thing. You start looking and you start noticing there's placebo. I guess they're like, well, is that mushrooms? Is that mushrooms? Or am I just like being aware? And then I ended up taking about 250 more milligrams, so about 750 in total. And then at some point, I was like, oh, I'm on mushrooms. Like, there's a really weird transition point where you just don't know. And then all of a sudden, something clicks in place, and you're like really in sync with everything that's happening around you, like sound, smell, touch, senses. And you're like, I have never experienced this before.
So that first time, where were you and who were you with?
I was at the chalet. I was alone with my partner Mark, and we both did the mushrooms at the same time. So it was like an experience to see how it would go.
Mhm.
And I just remember I knew it took effect because I had like a lemon in a glass or something that I was drinking. And I just became so amazed by the texture of the lemon slice in the cup. I was like, it's alive. It's, like, blending in with the water, the juice is coming out of the lemon into the water, and I was like it was just so vivid and so alive that I was like that was the first moment that I was like, "I think something's weird or something's not normal."
And what season was it?
It was in the summer.
Okay.
For me, mushrooms is really a summer activity. Like I need to be able to go outside and interact with nature and feel like I'm in an environment. Being inside, it can be super challenging for me on mushrooms. Not that it's bad, it's just that I feel mushrooms make you feel so connected to everything that's around you.
Yeah.
And uh, something we can talk a lot about, but we came up with this really funny term the time that we did mushrooms where being inside felt too angular. Like
Yeah,
there's just too many lines, there's too much
exactly.
structure.
Yeah,
And
you need to experience fluidity.
yeah, you need nature, organic, you need
You
movement.
need
And
movement, yeah.
so I was outside and I was sitting on the dock and like just being really amazed with the water and the trees. And for me, at about 750 grams and above, things start to bend for me. So,
Okay,
like, the environment feels like it's breathing. So,
yeah.
when I watch the water, it's like like soothe and calming, like just like raising and lowering, but I think
Yeah,
it's actually just me breathing and it
right.
gives this illusion that other things are breathing.
For me too, that was the first sign, like, I when we did it for the first time, we were at that same chalet that you're talking about, and I was also on that dock alone when it sort of first started kicking in,
Mhm.
and I just remember just, like, laying down on the chair, and I was just looking at the water and the way that the light was reflecting on the water and the way that all of that was moving,
Uh-huh.
and I was just like, "This is so beautiful."
Yeah.
And I was just like and again, like you, I was sort of just questioning, like, "Is this the mushrooms? Like, is
Uh-huh.
this what that does?
Yeah.
Or am I just having a good time and, like, noticing the beauty in these small details that I had maybe not paid attention to ever before?"
And I think that's the amazing thing when you first do mushrooms at the right dosage. It really feels like you're just being aware to what's already there, but
Yeah.
you're able to be present to receive it.
Yeah.
And otherwise, we're like on our phone or talking or like interacting and distracted by things. And we're just not seeing how light hits objects in such a beautiful, simple, magical way.
Yeah.
And there's just like this really, I guess, that moment, like I keep talking about, like when you see the light, you notice the way the wind is blowing in the trees,
Yes.
you hear all the sounds around you amplified, and you're like, all of these senses of like what already exists in the world were just available for it.
Yeah, you're tuning in
Yeah.
because there's just too much noise between us and, like you said, what already
Hmm.
exists. And it's hard to connect to those deeper, more organic and real frequencies when there's so much noise in between.
Yeah. The thing that really just happens is like when you take psilocybin, I'm not the doctor here
Yeah.
and I'm not going to like say that I know all of it, but from what I can understand is that essentially psilocybin helps you relax the default mode network. So it's kind of like the part of your brain that is like really self reflective and self conscious. It's the ego, it's your sense of self. And when that relaxes, essentially your brain is able to create new neural pathways to other parts of your brain that are sort of, I would say, unfiltered. So you
Mm.
have this ability to like connect really easily to just like what's happening instead of always being self-reflective and being like, what is happening now? Or how am I perceiving this now? Or should I filter what I'm taking in? You're just more aware or more able to make those connections. And the thing that's really beautiful, and I'm sure you had a significant after effect after the first time that you took mushrooms, your brain kind of remembers those new pathways it
Yes.
took, and it don't need to filter through that same network in the way that it has historically. So like, you make new patterns that if you keep using them, they stay active, which is really beautiful.
It is, I think that was the aspect of it that excited me the most, like, I remember when you were telling me that exact concept of the new pathways,
Hmm.
that sounded so exciting to me,
Hmm.
because I think that we all carry so much baggage with us, we all repeat patterns, I think we can all feel stuck at a certain point in our lives, and the idea that you can break through
Hmm.
the rigidity that sort of sets in as you get older in life is a really promising one
Yeah.
and a really exciting one, and I really did feel that for sure.
So we talked about like this soft takeoff, I guess I would say, of the trip of taking
Yeah,
mushrooms. And you kind of have this ambiguity. You start seeing that things are really beautiful. And you're like, wow, I'm really connected to something more than just myself.
yeah.
What happens next? Like, where do you go? What was your experience like?
Well, there were 2 things. One, and it ended up being an enormous part of the entire journey, was music.
Hmm.
When I was sitting at the dock, first I was alone, but I had your speaker, this really amazing speaker, by the way, like, like, you know those people that have, like, relationships with inanimate objects? Like, I could totally fuck that speaker and be in love and marry that speaker. And I was listening to these songs that were mostly electronic,
Mhm.
um, but that were gentle. So one of them was, Mylène Farmer's Bouteille à la mer, and listening to Madonna's, Has to Be,
Uh-huh.
these very sort of watery electronic songs, which really mimicked the water
Yeah.
movement that was in front of me on the dock. So it was this feeling of connection where from the water to the trees, it was during the fall, so the trees were just these beautiful colors. And as the music was playing, it felt like the music was a living organism as well.
Uh-huh.
And it might sound really corny, but it also kind of felt like each song was its own universe.
Mhm.
And I was living in that universe for the duration of that song.
Yeah.
And I remember reaching the end of a song, and I had grown attached to the song because I felt like I had just lived it.
Uh-huh.
And I remember feeling not worried, but just a moment of, I don't want this song to end. But then immediately being, it's okay for the song to end.
Yeah.
There's something else coming.
Yes. I remember I was inside, and I think you were alone out on the dock for quite a while at the beginning of the experience,
Yeah.
and I was making a soup so that we had something to eat later, and you texted me, and I was inside, and you're like, "I'm about to put on a trippy song."
Yeah, and then you came out,
Yeah.
and that was the second thing. As soon as I saw your face,
Uh-huh.
I knew that something was happening. Like, that's what your face confirmed to me, that this wasn't just a placebo effect, that,
Uh-huh.
like, something was happening.
And I remember I came out and I sat down and I think Madonna was playing. I forget which song it was. And another friend of ours was there too. And we were just moving like through these songs as if they were like dimensions.
Yes, dimensions.
And you were sitting on the lounge bed with like a blanket wrapped around you,
Yes.
and you like looked over at me and you're like, I don't know if I'm a guru, I don't know if I'm a witch, I don't know if I'm a spiritual leader. And you were like, I'm just out here giving advice, like you were ready to like tell people how the world was.
Yeah, I felt that confidence, or not even confidence, but just that knowing.
Hmm.
And but a deep knowing. And I think that was one of the biggest, parts of the experience as well, was that I think that when it comes to understanding universal truths, like the idea of, like, love energy and the
Hmm.
universe, I think that those are things that I think about a lot and that I've read about and that
Hmm.
I believe I understand.
Hmm.
But I think the experience of being on the mushrooms, it was sort of taking everything that I knew intellectually, and I was allowed to actually feel it for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that I ever felt it on the soul level that I did,
Hmm.
because it actually, I think it's the difference between knowing and being connected.
Hmm.
And knowing something is not the same thing as being connected to something.
Hmm.
So knowing the love energy that exists in the universe is very different than feeling it and
Hmm.
being connected to it.
Yeah. I remember the time that I did the hero dose. It took me about a year to plan for it and to feel comfortable about doing it. I knew that it was something that I didn't want to do alone. I knew that I wanted to have a psychologist there in the event that something went wrong.
Mhm.
And I knew that music was so important. So there was Mark was there. He did the experience with me as well. There was a psychologist and a musician that did like a sound bath experience for the whole 4 to 6 hours of
Wow.
the trip, and it was the most profound experiences that I've ever had in my life. And when you do mushrooms at that level, you essentially wear like a sleep mask because the visuals become so internal. It's an like really beautiful internal experience. And people often talk about it as like this idea that your ego dissolves, like, and that
Mm,
you just be and that you feel connected to
right.
everything. And I was really terrified of that. Like, what if my ego dissolves and never comes back? What if I like come out of the experience as a completely different person?
Yeah.
And I had like really serious conversations with my therapist. Like, what if I come out and I just be so truthful to myself that my world around me doesn't align anymore? Like, it was a really big fear that I had. And I still went ahead with it. It was still recommended by my therapist, and I had another therapist on site that was helping. And I went into the experience, and it was wild.
And where did you do this?
It was in Brazil,
Okay.
so it was a shaman that led it for us, and the
So you
sounds.
go to like, were you in a tent? Were you outside? Like,
I was in a house. It was hosted at the shaman's
okay, so you're
house.
indoors.
Yeah, we're completely indoors, lying down on a really comfy couch, and
And you stay lying down with your eye covering for the whole duration.
the whole
You don't
duration.
move around.
You can. So, like, I got up at different points and we did checkpoints. We
But when you got
talked.
up, you still had your eyes covered?
No, I would take it
Okay.
off. And then, like, I would be talking to Mark and to the therapist, and I'm like, this is happening for me. This is what I'm experiencing. How do you feel? All of that sort of stuff. And it was really like well done. It was done in increments, and they use really beautiful metaphors. Like, imagine that you are on your cloud and there's a like ladder to go up to the next level. Do you want to take more? So, like, it was incremental. It
Okay.
wasn't all at once,
Okay.
so I could gauge how I was feeling, which I really liked. And I would, in the intermissions, I would say, like, sit up, take off my stuff, start talking, and then I was journaling like I was the prophet, writing down the knowledge of the world.
Was it legible?
Yeah, it was super legible. I still have the notes. It's
And
like,
were they useful?
yeah, super useful. I had like diagrams. I was drawing charts and
What
like all
was one
these.
of the big breakthroughs in that journaling for you?
It's really hard to describe, but it was so profound that, like, I had entire conversations with people, like healing trauma conversations. I had conversations with like my actual therapist that I have in life. I had conversations with my
But,
mother.
like, conversations in your mind?
Yeah, like, I would visualize that I was sitting down and that we were having these interactions, and like I was repairing the
And were you
relationships.
speaking out loud?
No, it's
Okay, it was
all
all in your head.
internal. And it was so beautiful. Like, as the experience like fell into place, I literally felt like I dissolved into a sail of a sailboat, like this
Mm.
triangle, and that it was being blown around to so many different aspects of my life. And it was so similar to the experience that you're saying about the music, about it ending and not wanting it to end.
Yeah.
Because, like, I can remember sitting on a couch with Mark face to face, and our entire relationship was like this energy ball. And like we were just zapping energy, and that, like, everything is everything. Like,
Yes.
and all of this like beautiful energy and the things that we create in our relationship, that we just transfer energy, and that everything
Mhm.
is just energy. Like, that was
Yeah.
the basis of it. But then the sail, which was me, would just like continue to float on to somewhere else. And I would be like, no, I want to hold on and I want to stay with that moment. And then also being like, well, no, it's already gone. You're already fleeting over to somewhere else. And then having to be okay with being in that moment.
Yeah.
Like, I think mushrooms really allow you to not attach to
Yeah.
ideas or moments, or like fixate. It really helps you realize that everything is connected and flowing, and that actually we're just all beautiful energy trying to connect with one another. And
Exactly.
yeah,
And it sounds so obvious, and it
it
is,
is.
but I don't know that I would have ever had that feeling
Hmm.
in any other way. I don't
Yeah.
know how I would have ever arrived at that feeling.
I don't think it's possible. Like, I don't think that we have the systems in place that give us that mental
I
freedom.
think we live in a culture and a system that really fucks with our brains and actually destroys those connections.
Hmm.
I think that if we were living outside of this capitalistic structure with all the harmful messages that we've grown up with that are so ingrained, that really create barriers between us and just that idea of energy,
Yeah.
I think that it's innate though.
Hmm.
I feel like it is. I mean, who am I to say? I don't have any way of, like, proving it or not, but I do feel like that feeling of just being energy and wanting to connect, I think is so human and so innate, but we just get so alienated from it, and to the point where, like, the only way to re-access it is through this sort of substance that just clears all the clutter out of the
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
Because 'Cause I've never felt more at ease
Mhm.
and more at peace with everything, the
Yeah.
good and the bad. Because I think that in everyday life, the bad really weighs on me.
Mhm.
The state of the world, the stresses that are going on in my own personal life, it weighs on me
Yeah.
so heavily. And I carry it like a burden, like
Mhm.
almost like a physical object. I've never felt so free.
I think the description for me is like you're still very aware of all the
Yes,
things and you still are very conscious that they're bad, but you're
but they don't
not
carry
judging.
weight.
Yeah, they're not attaching to you and holding you down. It's like
Exactly.
it's just flowing and it's really I think the first time that you do mushrooms and experience that, it's quite liberating.
It's
It
so
feels
liberating.
like you've taken years off your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe to that effect, like, I remember you saying that, like, when you would look at us, like, you could see our youth.
Mhm.
So maybe it's part of that,
Yeah.
that lifting of time and all the baggage and debris that you collect that is, like, aging you and holding you down. To be
Mhm.
freed of that is really, truly one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah.
Like, I really do wish that I could live with that feeling every day.
The Pisces is coming out.
I do, like, it's just yeah, but like you said, I was able to carry that feeling into my life afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, things did I was able to keep that perspective
Mhm.
and to remind myself of the feeling of that freedom
Yeah.
and weightlessness. And it lasted a while because I could sort of tune back into that feeling.
Mhm.
But I have to say, like, now that, like, a decent amount of time has gone by, like, a few months, like, I think that I'm, like, back to feeling the heaviness.
Sure. It doesn't stay, but I think you can understand or know that
You
it's
know what it
possible.
yes, exactly, and I
And
think that that knowing can contribute to some kind of optimism at least.
yeah. So, what were some of the ridiculous things that came up? Because it's really this profound experience
Yeah,
that you have. You can feel connected and things don't feel as heavy,
yeah,
and you feel at one with nature and energy. And I think it's probably like a I think, we have, like, this pressure in society to love somebody and know what that love feels like, but I don't know if many people have ever really truly experienced universal love, and,
yeah,
like, that's quite
it's
profound.
really profound.
But then at the same time and I think probably elements of doing the mushrooms really inspired this podcast, like, that you could go
Yes,
really deep and also be really ridiculous, and,
yes,
like, you can realize and look at yourself and the things that are happening around you and like, "That's so stupid."
yes, it's all of that. I do think it did lead to this podcast for sure, because I think those are some of the best conversations I've ever had, like,
Mhm.
that day. And you mentioned earlier that, I never know how to pronounce the psilocybin, what's it called?
Psilocybin.
Psilocybin? Regis Philbin.
Regis
I can never pronounce it. But you said that, yeah, the Regis Philbin can, um, affect that part of the brain that is ego and maybe even, self-censorship,
Mhm,
or so, in addition to the freedom that comes from understanding that everything has its place and you don't have to be burdened by everything, that you
mhm.
can allow the good and the bad to move freely and flow, there's that freedom. But then I think there was also the freedom of not censoring myself,
'Kay.
of being completely unself conscious, or mostly because I would have these moments where I would feel super free to just tell you guys, like, what I was like, saying things that I was thinking out loud as I was thinking them. Like, I
Mhm.
felt a freedom in communication
Yeah.
that maybe in everyday life, I'm more conscious of what I'm saying and how I'm saying it and how it's coming across. But then there would also be these brief moments where I would kind of check myself, or like I would feel a moment of self-consciousness,
Yeah.
and be like, "Oh my god, I sound so stupid right now." Whereas like 5 seconds before, I thought I was like a genius, you know? So, but ultimately, still, despite the sort of back and forth between the freedom and the maybe reflex to self-censor, I think in general, I felt a freedom to really just be myself, or to even just not think about myself,
Yeah.
to not think about who I am,
Mhm.
and to just allow thoughts, feelings to come through without being filtered through my ego.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, just for context to somebody that hasn't tried this yet, we're still very lucid. We're still
Yes.
very like our motor skills are very like
Yeah.
capable. Our ability to move and physicality is completely normal. Like
Yeah.
we're still cooking, we're still going to the bathroom, we're still like uh,
Yeah. And you're not hallucinating.
not at that
Not that the
dosage
dosage
for.
that we did.
And, it I would say, like, my comparison, I was just so surprised the first time that I did mushrooms. I was like, "Oh, I don't feel drunk." Like, I don't have the
No.
impairments of, like, drinking alcohol, and it was really quite impressive that I still had this, like, intellectual capability, but also this ability to just laugh at everything because it was like, "Does it really mean anything, or does it matter?" And you just really start to appreciate the moment for what it is, whether it's like you're saying something funny or you're not, or it's serious. We don't have like containers or a framework that we're working in. We're just being.
Yeah. And there's no judgment,
Yeah.
or very little.
Well, there's like, I find there's often
Like, I've
this.
never felt like, less judgment, like, I think that in life, I can be judgmental,
Yeah.
um, and I don't like that side of myself. I don't like judging others, and I ultimately know that my judgments have no, value, no
Hmm.
worth, so it's not like I hold on to my judgments, it's more just in the moment of, like, reacting to things.
Yeah.
But I think that being on mushrooms, I also just felt that part of me sort of
Hmm.
dissipate, and just feeling so non-judgmental,
Yeah.
not just about like things that we were talking about, but even just thinking about the world at large. Like, I felt this incredible empathy for like everyone, or like the
Yeah.
concept of everyone, or the world,
Yeah.
just really feeling that like, oh, we all just want to feel love. We all just want to be connected to that love energy.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I noticed, and I think you kind of enabled that, was you came inside at one point and we were in the kitchen and you were like, it's just too angular here. We cannot be in this space. And you're like, I have to go like move. I have to be somewhere else. It's not the right environment for this
Well,
experience.
because I was sitting by the dock, again,
Yeah.
near the water, listening to my watery electronic songs,
Yeah.
feeling so connected to nature. And
Yeah.
I'm not a nature person at all. I don't like being outside. I don't like the outdoors, but I loved it that day. And yeah, coming inside into a space that is linear, it felt like I was losing something, or
Hmm.
it felt almost antagonistic,
Yeah.
you know?
But then you had the intuition to just move to another room and like you found your groove and you settled in. Like, just in general, I think if you ever have this experience, the set and setting is everything. Where
Everything.
you are, who you're with, the mood everybody's in, that all of these things are such important variables. But like, I think you kind of taught yourself also that if a situation isn't right for you, you just remove yourself from
I
it,
know.
or uh, change the parameters or do something. Because I think that you, and also I, based on what I know, we often put ourselves in situations that we just don't want to be there, but we're there and we stick with it and put up with it.
I know.
And being on mushrooms is like, well, actually, I could just leave the room.
Exactly.
And it's so simple, but also a liberating thing to think that, wow, it really is that simple.
I know.
Sometimes our brain overcomplicates things Of course, there's situations where people can't escape from them and it's really bad, but I'm talking about, like, things that we actively participate in that we don't want to and that we can change, and we just stick with them for no good reason.
I know, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible, but you do become on mushrooms so sensitive to, like, the not just the vibes, but, like, energy.
Yeah.
You become so attuned to, like, micro energies.
Yeah.
It's wild, and I think you do have to listen
Yeah.
to that.
And I remember towards the end of the trip, we were in another part of the chalet. There was a lot of windows around, and we moved into the Alanis era. So we were only playing Alanis Morissette songs. And we were there for a couple hours, and we were just watching the light set
Yeah,
as the sun was setting, and it was just changing. And it was so beautiful. Like, we were just listening to the music, having our random conversations, but just watching how the light was hitting everybody and just being like, I have to take a picture of, like, the way that the light is hitting your face right now. And then you'd bring out your phone and it would be like, I can't look at the phone. This doesn't make any sense. There's just no way it could capture what I'm seeing and feeling.
exactly, and the phone literally, I remember taking my phone and just, like, wanting to capture the moment, and my phone felt like an enemy.
Yeah.
Honestly, I know that sounds so weird, but it just felt like this ugly, awful thing,
Mhm.
which I think is true. It is an ugly, awful thing
Yeah.
that is ruining all of our lives,
And it's so funny because it's the device of connection.
but it's not. It's a
Yeah.
lie. Real connection is through mushrooms. But I
So
think what was also really beautiful about that experience that day was that we all moved through so many emotions,
mhm.
and we had so many great conversations that went from ridiculous topics like volleyball,
Yeah.
which to me suddenly became like the most hilarious thing I'd ever heard of in my
Right.
life. And it was I think, one of the times that I've laughed the most in my life, and that just felt so good.
Uh-huh.
But then there were moments of like real vulnerability
Yeah.
and crying,
Mhm.
but it wasn't sad necessarily. It was more, again, I think that was another dimension of the freedom, that you could allow yourself to just feel what you're feeling in the moment and not hold it back. Just let it move through you.
Mhm.
So if there's a moment where either something in a song or something someone says pulls at your heartstrings and triggers something, it's not triggering in the way that we think about it, which usually has a negative connotation, but
Mhm.
it sort of allows something or some kind of information to come to the surface that maybe you've been ignoring or maybe you couldn't process otherwise. And you're able to actually look at it and confront it without judgment, without fear,
Mhm.
but just to look at it, have a response, and let it go.
I think that's such an interesting way to put it, and it's, like, so accurate. And I think that even if we have the little seeds to get to those emotional places, we're just trained to put them back down. We don't
Exactly.
have them.
Yeah.
It's too, like, too much discomfort to confront it. Other people are going to feel uncomfortable. But I think, like, people are just so available and other people are available that the emotion just has space.
Yeah, which reminds me of, like, in one of our previous episodes where we spoke about, like, your inability to have that, like, emotional orgasm, and, for all the years that I've known you, like, I've never seen you cry.
Hmm.
Like, I had never really seen you show emotion.
Hmm.
I could hear you talk about feelings, talk about experiences, but I never saw it.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, I mean, I know Viva Forever made you cry, and there was something else, maybe it was during the Alanis era, but, like, not that I felt, like, happy to see you cry, but I think there was it was just, like, nice to see you be able to allow yourself,
So it was
because
in
in day-to-day life, you don't really
yeah,
allow yourself.
it was nice to see me as a human.
Yes, basically, that's what I'm saying. It was nice to have that confirmed, like,
Yeah.
"Oh, thank God I know I didn't take out my journal, but I could have been, like, taking my little journal and be like, 'He's not a robot!' Exclamation point underline."
And so I guess like we're on this trip that we did for what, 4 to 6 hours? It
Yeah.
was quite
And I remember
long.
there was a part where seemed like it was over, but then it wasn't.
Yeah,
That's where the Alanis era came in. It was sort
it's
of like this bonus stretch
yeah.
that was really peaceful, but it was deeply emotional. Like, I vividly remember, because that's the other thing too, that I think that, in addition to my drug fears, is in the fear of my mind being altered in a way that I'm not in control of, like, I was always scared too of, like, what does it do to your memory? And,
Yeah.
like, you do, like you said, you're fully conscious,
Mhm.
and so you remember.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I do remember that part where it was sort of that final stretch where we were listening to Alanis's MTV Unplugged album from track 1 to the end,
Mhm.
and it just felt so gentle, but it
Yeah.
was a moment where we all shared very vulnerably.
Yeah, it's I think what I like about the mushroom experience is that it's so soft to start and the landing is so soft as well,
Yeah, it's not
and
like a hangover. There's no physical sensation.
no, and, it just feels like you've gone on a big journey, like,
Yes. It's a journey.
you feel like you've been on a flight and you've, like, just gotten from one destination to another, and you're not like, you're a different person when you arrive there,
Yes.
and it's not like you did anything physical, but you know that you've activated a lot of your energy and your
Yes.
mind and
And it is active. It is
yeah,
an active process because,
yeah.
again, like, there is, I think you mentioned it earlier, but you can't do that again the next day.
No, you need a like, significant amount of time
Yeah,
to process
because
it.
there is something that you've given to that
Yeah,
experience. Like, it's not that something's taken out of you, it's not negative in any way,
yeah,
but there's, a I guess, tiredness, but not really. I don't know how to articulate it, but, like, you do feel
yeah.
like you've walked 1,000 miles.
I think it's like you've just had a busy day and you're mentally exhausted. Like,
Mhm.
that's kind of the feeling that I have, but also it's really complicated because it has like, the aftermath kinda has a sense of euphoria. You're like, "I
Yes.
just experienced something profound."
Yeah, I remember feeling so good and just
And
wanting to hold on to that.
yeah, and I think it's really interesting because the the coming in and out at the end of the experience, you're like, "Okay, it's done now. It's over. I can, like, set myself aside from it," and then just, like, one thing needs to happen. A song needs to come on or
Yeah.
somebody needs to laugh a certain way, and you're like,
Oh, it's triggered,
"We're
yeah.
we're still
We're
here."
I think that's exactly what happened.
Yeah,
Something made us laugh and we fell back into it.
yeah,
And, but I think in terms of, like, that not physical, but that activeness in the process
yeah,
that can be sort of tiring, for lack of a better word.
yeah,
I do remember there being a moment where I kind of was ready for it to be over just
yeah,
because I was like, I'm having all of these thoughts and I'm talking a lot and I'm philosophizing and piecing things together and acknowledging trauma and evolving and
Yeah.
being and traveling from one portal of a song to another. And I just remember feeling like, okay, like, I'm done.
Yeah. That's enough of a psychology PhD in one
Yeah,
day.
like, I think I just wanted to, like,
Settle, yeah.
settle, yeah. But
And
not in any bad way, like, it wasn't like I was freaking out, like, it was just like, "Okay."
it's so interesting too because the after effect is not physical. Like I my only real comparison is alcohol, like the idea of a hangover and
Yeah,
the next day, there's none of that.
there's
Like you
none of
wake up
that.
and you're like ready to enjoy your day
Yeah,
and
there's no side
yeah.
effects, like, at the dosage that we did anyway.
For me, the first time that I did mushrooms, it completely changed my relationship to alcohol.
Mm,
Like it shifted. Like I was like, why do I drink this substance? I'm so not interested in it. And when I do drink it, like after I had such a weird reaction, I'm like, why am I taking this thing that makes me feel horrible
yeah,
later and inhibits me in a way that doesn't like expand my mind?
yeah.
And my whole relationship to alcohol changed, and I feel no pressure to drink alcohol. I rarely do. It's like something I would do, like, the same thing as having just, like, an Aperol spritz on a sunny day, and I'm settled. Like, I
Yeah.
don't need anything more than that, but I was so shocked at how it changed my relationship to other substances
Right.
for, I think, a positive reason.
Yeah, for sure. But you were you a big drinker in your
No,
life? No?
but, like, I would feel socially pressured to
Okay.
drink and, go and have a few drinks, and now I'm just like, "What do you mean?"
What do you mean?
Why? Like, why are you proposing this to me? But
Yeah.
so, I think we've been on a journey throughout
Yeah.
this episode. Is there anything about your mushroom experience that you'd like to share that you didn't cover?
Um, I don't think so. I think we really covered it. I think again, it's just that sense of freedom, um, feeling uninhibited. Like you said, setting is everything, who you're with, where you are. If
Mhm.
you're gonna do it, try to be near nature. I think that was an important part of it. Have a good playlist. Actually, that would be my dream job now. Like, I would love to guide people, but through music, through
Nice.
like a carefully curated and planned playlist. That would be a dream job.
So, I guess you've been thinking about it. It's been like 6 months since you first did the experience, and we've been just passively talking about having another mushroom trip at some point in the future. What are your intentions or hope for the second journey?
Well, I feel very ready. We were supposed to do it and in January, and then plans just kind of fell through. And like you said, things do just have to align.
Yeah.
Like it chooses you. And I'm feeling very ready. I think I want to go in deeper. I mean,
Okay.
I would never go into it with an agenda because that's the antithesis of what this experience is. Like that and there's nothing more angular than an agenda. Um, but I think like I it might sound silly, but I think one of the biggest things that I'm most looking forward to is just listening to different songs.
Yeah.
Because again, I think those songs, like you said, really functioned as dimensions or portals. And I think, or they're even channels
Mhm.
to experiencing different emotions. And each song that we would listen to would sort of lead us to a different kind of discussion. So I'm actually really excited to listen to more music.
Mhm. Did it change your entire experience of listening to music now? Like, when you hear a song, are you like, "I need to hear this song on mushrooms?"
Yes, I have a playlist called "Songs I Need to Listen to on
So,
Mushrooms."
you need to share that for the podcast to
I
send
will,
out.
I will. And what about you, like, in terms of either something about your past experience or something that you're looking forward to on the next trip?
Yeah, I think, as you said, we had planned to do it at the start of the year, but with the people that were involved, I was just feeling their energy and like trying to see if it was the right moment. And
It wasn't.
the start of the year was just so off in
Yes, for me
general.
too, honestly, it would not have been. It was a dark start to the year.
Like for you personally, and I think globally, like we were all feeling these weird energies. And I was just like, I think that if we are in a chalet in the winter inside and we have these energies, it just won't be the right moment. And
Yeah,
I could just intuitively like
yeah.
catch to that. So I was like, it needs to be another time, everyone. I think for me this time, I would say like the last few times that I've done it, it's really been about guiding people.
Mhm.
Like we've even mentioned on this podcast, like when I have an experience or knowledge, I just want to pull people into it. So,
Yeah,
like, you were one of those people. It's like, how can you have this experience? Like, I've had it. I need to share this with you. I need you to open your mind.
yeah.
I need to journey like into the mind space because you can get to a level of conversation after you do mushrooms that you could just never get to
Yes,
without it. So, I'm looking forward to doing it with people that have already done it so I can
yes.
feel less like the guide and I can just settle into my own
I
experience.
love that.
Mm.
I'm excited for that.
So let's go.
I'm ready.
Thank you, everyone. This has been another episode of Intellectual Intercourse. I hope you've been on an amazing journey with us today for this trip.
And do your research, be safe, but I'll end with this.
Okay.
This was one of the big lessons because we talked about all the fears that we had related to drugs, related to control issues. You mentioned even just the way that we stay in sort of shitty situations in life and just accept them and suffer through them instead of just shifting them or removing ourselves from them. And I think one of the things that I realized is that not only in relation to drugs, but I think that sometimes there are experiences that I deny myself out of fear and that I miss out. I hold myself back because of fear, and I think we all do. And so it was a really nice realization to come to that don't deprive yourself of the wild things that life has to offer, whether that's drugs or something else that you want to experience. Just allow yourself to have the experience.
Mhm.
Don't be scared. Thank you all so much for listening. We love you. Please make sure to stay connected by subscribing to the pod and leave us a 5-star review.
And if you want to get trippy with us, follow us on Instagram at Gotta Be Deep and DM us your favorite mushroom song.
Speaking of songs, our theme song is Wipe My Memory Clean by Farrah Niles.